Hi, I'm Michelle Begue with a look at what's happening in Latin America now. But first, our news trivia. Which city of Latin America will be the host of the G20 summit in November? We'll have the answer later. In Uruguay, 2.8 million citizens will head out to vote on October 27th to elect their new president. These coming days will be the final countdown for the candidates who are vying to replace term-limited president Luis Lacalle Pou. There are 11 contenders with just 2 polling ahead: Álvaro Delgado of the incumbent National Party and Yamandu Orsi of the left-of-center Broad Front Coalition. If none of the candidates win with more than 50% of the vote, the top 2 will head for a runoff. That Sunday, citizens will also be electing officials for their legislative branch and decide on 2 referendum questions. Colombia is getting ready to receive more than 14,000 delegates and officials from around the world in the city of Cali next week. Colombia is the host for the United Nations Biodiversity Summit, known as COP16. While citizens, experts, and officials want to talk about actions to conserve the world's biodiversity, the host country is making headlines over security issues. Over the weekend, the Colombian government launched raids against the EMC, a FARC dissident group. Officials say at least 20 people were injured in the clashes. The group has urged delegations not to attend the meeting that will go from October 20th to November 1st. The government is reinforcing security in Cali by sending 11,000 police and military to the summit. Now let's go to Mexico, where my colleague Al Baverstock has a special report.
It's been a difficult year for Acapulco since Hurricane Otis, one of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded in the eastern Pacific, devastated the beach resort and killed 47 people. Otis struck Mexico's Pacific coast in October 2023 as a Category 5, causing widespread destruction, flooding, and leaving thousands without basic amenities. Lootings and robberies surged in the subsequent hours and days, while recovery over the subsequent months was slow, as visitor numbers failed to return to a town whose economy depends on tourism. And earlier this month, another hurricane, this time Category 3 John, struck the stretch of coast again, causing widespread flooding and claiming at least 15 more lives. Even 12 months on, much of Acapulco's hotel and residential infrastructure remains uninhabitable, and international investment has steered clear of the damaged coast. As warmer oceans give rise to stronger storms year on year, devastation and trauma at the tail end of the hurricane season now appear to be the norm for communities on Mexico's Pacific coast.
Now let's go to Argentina, where my colleague Joel Richards has a special report.
University students and teachers are taking over campuses across Argentina. Occupations began this week. The aim is to highlight the budget crisis facing the country's public universities. Earlier this month, Libertarian President Javier Milei vetoed a Congress-approved bill that would have increased funding for public universities. The government says the university's budget must be audited, the suggestion being that money is being misspent. At the weekend, the president said public higher education is an obstacle for social mobility, though data shows that nearly 70% of students are the first generation in their families to have attended higher education. There have been 2 major marches in defence of the public university system this year, as funding has been cut. And what universities are now seeing is a brain drain. Lecturers and professors are beginning to leave, either for the public sector or in many cases leaving the country. The prestigious QS World University Rankings recently placed the state-run University of Buenos Aires as the best university in Argentina and amongst the top 10 institutions in Latin America.
Now let's check out what stories we're following for next week. We are following protests in Bolivia as groups of peasants have indefinitely blocked 2 major roads that connected the department of Cochabamba with cities of Sucre and Santa Cruz. The protesters are supporting former President Evo Morales, who is facing allegations of an alleged relationship with a 15-year-old girl in 2015. Morales' lawyers argue that an investigation in 2020 into the same claims were closed for lack of evidence. And now the answer to our news trivia. The answer is C. Brazil will host the G20 Leaders Summit on November 18th and 19th in Rio de Janeiro. Brazil holds the G20 presidency since December 1st, 2023, and the summit marks the end of the rotating presidency. Leaders from all 19 member countries are expected to attend, along with representatives from the African Union and the European Union. Brazil's priority this year as president was to implement effective public policies to tackle issues such as hunger and poverty. And that's it for this week. We'll see you again soon on Latin America Now.